Thursday, March 31st. Year of our Lord. This is a list of music. This is a music review. This is the real thing. Small talk. Don't worry about small talk. It's just a control for the experiments. It's just improv backfeed. Feedback. It's me feeding back to the algorithm, the backfeed, the feed. Feed the feeder. Richard Davis, number 30. This guy, I'm giving you the top 30 bass players. I was going to give you the top 10. Top 10 is not enough bassists. Neither is top 20. Like, there's just so many honorable mentions that just I couldn't not put on the list. 30 is the smallest amount of bass players I'm comfortable with. I can give you the top 100 if you'd like. I would rather just give you in order my top 30 favorite musicians on every instrument in the order that I think these instruments are important or how I care about music. The most important thing to me in music is what the bass is doing. The second most important thing to me is what the drums are doing, and that's kind of tied with keyboards. Because Herbie Hancock's left hand is one of the greatest bass players ever. So maybe I have to do 30 best piano players next. And then I should do rhythm section together. I'll do 30 best bassists, 30 best drummers. These are the 30 best bassists. I listen to a lot of music. These are the ones. Richard Davis, great session musician, played on Astral Weeks, which has such gorgeous bass playing on it. That's probably why he's on this list, to me, honestly. Just the bass in that is the most compelling thing. And he played on like Bruce Springsteen hits, and he was like one of those guys who you don't know his name, but he played on everything. John Entwistle, number 29. Not a huge fan of The Who, not a huge fan of Pete Townshend's guitar playing or Keith Moon's drumming. John Entwistle magically makes those things coherent. I love John Entwistle's bass playing. It's the best part of The Who, by far. Like, the drums are sloppy, usually. Pete Townsend, I'm just not a big fan of what he usually does. A lot of the Baba O'Reillys and the We Won't Get Fooled Again, My Generation, it just sounds like corny, affected, pretentious. I don't enjoy it. John Paul Jones, I think, is the best musician in the band The Who. Geddy Lee, one of the first bass-led bands, and just one of the great prog bands. Especially the early stuff. 2112, Fly By Night. It's the one with Via Strangera. Before Moving Pictures. Anyway. Geddy Lee. Yeah. Putting Geddy Lee 27 in bass, not that controversial. Neither is 26 Phil Lesh. If you love the Grateful Dead's exploratory jams, the way that they are so weird and exploratory is largely in great part due to this man, Phil Lesh. Because he's not playing typical bass lines, hardly ever is he holding down the groove, repeating a simple phrase. He is almost always playing his weird he wasn't classically trained in bass. He was classically trained in some form of music theory, and he played like trumpet or some horn. And then he just figured out a new way how to play the bass. Kind of as Bobby's figuring out a new way to play rhythm guitar chords, and Jerry's figuring out how to incorporate his banjo abilities into playing guitar in this new way that incorporates jazz and bluegrass, creates the magic that is Grateful Dead improvisation. Phil Lesh, the second most important member of the Grateful Dead in terms of them actually creating interesting improvisation that sounds like jazz, that sounds like legitimately psychedelic experimental music. Shout out Pisces. Larry Grenadier, great underrated bass player. There's 30 of these. I don't have time to talk. I have to make this 10. Tony Levin. Listen to any of the Crimson albums. You know I love Crimson. I can't shut up about Crimson. Jack Bruce, 21. In a band of three prodigies, Jack Bruce just magically holding the glue together between Clapton and Ginger. Ginger's just taking a crazy... See, I like Ginger. I don't like Keith. I don't know why. I'm down with the wildness. I just like it, the Zach wildness. Okay. After Jack Bruce, 20 Les Claypool. You've, again, figured out like a new way to play the bass. And it created a cool sound that was... The bass is the lead instrument and the guitar is just sort of playing this atonal complementary stuff, but what you're really listening to is the bass. Yeah, and I liked Frizzle Fry Seas of Cheese. I think some of his solo stuff is good. I've reviewed this shit. Why am I telling you? You just naming bass players. Ray Brown, 19. Great jazz bass player. If you listen to jazz, this guy played on a lot of your favorite songs, albums. So did Paul Chambers, number 18. Charlie Hayden, amazing. If you've ever seen this guy play bass live, he's incredible. As is Christian McBride, number 16. These are just great jazz musicians. These are just technically incredible. If you care about technical skill on the instrument that is the bass, you're not doing much better than these guys. I put Alfonso Johnson, 15. I think this guy's really underrated. I liked the Weather Report albums post Jaco, which Alfonso plays on. I like a lot of other side things that he's done. He's just a great, funky, technically competent, but can do all the jazz scales, he's just a fantastic bass player. The 15th best of all time, behind Marcus Miller, who's also a great bass player. Dave Holland, 13. Listen to Conference of the Birds. Listen to In a Silent Way. You remember the bass line to In a Silent Way? It's kind of the most important thing in a Silent Way. Dave Holland's playing that. Ron Carter. Have you listened to the Miles Davis Quintet? Why not? Do it now. I will link them. George Porter, number 9. The meters, the bass is always the best part of the meters. I like Zigaboo too. Zigaboo's just got this. Zigaboo plays drums. He'll be in the top 30 drummers. Let's just say. The meters, always criminally underrated. Mark Sandman, number 11, or number 10 rather. Sorry. I had to put Sandman top 10. Morphine, I think, is one of the most underrated bands ever. He invented, again, a new way to play bass. He usually played a 2-string, like, semi-acoustic custom bass, and he plays these bass lines that are like chords on bass. I'm currently trying to learn how to play the bass, and Mark Sandman, to me, it's like what I hear when I play the bass. I'm like, oh, I want to just do the like he can just do it on one string. He can play a beautiful song that's just his vocal or no vocal and just him playing one string. Yeah. Incredible bass player. Above him, George Porter, the meters, so good. Did I put 2 George Porters? I think I just read the order wrong. Anyway, whatever, I named 30 people at some point. Mononeon I put 8, because he is creating new bass in the front music that is incredible. I love his bass playing too. I love his entire philosophical manifesto. He's just a beautiful soul. Just seems like an amazing person. I'm very excited to see what he does. I love the way he plays bass lines, creates songs out of noise. I think he's one of the most interesting living musical artists. His manifesto is beautiful. His whole approach to life. I think Mononeon is kind of like our Bootsy, our Stanley, like our, it's like the modern version of the spirit of Jaco, the spirit of... Anyway, he's number 8 though. I put Victor Wooten above Mononeon. I want to switch those. Because Victor Wooten is better technically at playing the bass than Mononeon. You can't hold no groove if you ain't got no pocket. Oh, I've seen the Flecktones. I've seen solo Vic Wooten doing some... He's good. He, like, technically, if you like metal shredding guitar players that sweep pick and double finger tap, technically, Victor Wooten could play any bass player under the table. So I have to put him in the top 10. Because at some point, the dude who can play the scale the fastest, he's kind of the best. You might not write the best songs, you might not like hold the coolest pocket, but you gotta shout Victor Wooten. It's just downright impressive. What he does with the bass, he just molests it. It's not even... Yeah, Victor Wooten. I should post Flecktones. I should post Scratch and Sniff. That's... That bass, that's what I'm talking about. Stanley Clark, number 6. Return to Forever. His solo songs. Bootsy Collins, number 5. One of the greatest musicians ever. The best musician in Parliament Funkadelic. Other than possibly Eddie Hazel. I think he's better than Eddie Hazel. So yeah, he is the most impressive musician in one of the greatest and most influential bands ever. And his bass playing is unlike... He's just amazing. I like Bootsy's Rubber Band. I like the whole Bootsy... Whatever Bootsy's into, get into it. Number 4, Jaco Pastorius. Tragic story. Ended up playing for change in the streets, being homeless, sleeping in the park because he was dealing with such severe mental illness, made worse by years of drug addiction. But Jaco Pastorius, you want to talk about a guy with technical ability who reinvented ways to play the bass. Listen to Jaco Pastorius' solo material. Also listen to the Weather Report records he played on, which are all 10s. Number 3, James Jamerson. James Jamerson's bass lines, you can sing. It's so just like melodically gorgeous. And he played on everything. He played on all your favorite songs. Check the... Nobody cares about liner notes anymore because everybody streams anything. That's what this stupid channel is me trying to do liner notes for you. But people used to say what musicians wrote and played on what songs and who they were thanking and influenced by, and then you could figure out more about music rather than just having some random corporate algorithm feed you stuff that's near stuff other people clicked on that clicked on the same thing. You can develop your own taste rather than just being like 90s alt-rock playlist. Go. Anyway, Jaco Pastorius. Tragic ending. But he left us some of the greatest bass playing ever. Still trying to learn the chicken. Just feel like I need to learn the chicken before I die, you know? James Jamerson. After that, there's only 2. There's Larry Graham. I thought Larry Graham was 1. Because Sly and the Family Stone is maybe my favorite band. And Larry Graham's bass playing is like my ideal of bass playing. It's like the first funk. It's like the first funk bass player. The first guy who's slapping it. The first guy who's in the Sly stuff. Yeah, Larry Graham just goes wild on. Excellent bass player. He's not better than Charles Mingus, though. He's the only one who's better. Just because listen to Black Saint and the Sinner Lady. He's not only an incredible acoustic bass player, He's one of the great composers of all time. Hare Krishna, it's 15 minutes.